Great. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to give folks a moment just to join the meeting. But as you are joining the Zoom, go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat. We'd love to know who you are, where you're joining us from, and what it is that you do that's brought you to this onboarding. Are you a product manager? What are you? Okay, welcome, Roger. I'm going to give you all a chance to introduce yourselves in the chat, and then we'll get started. Okay, welcome. All right, we've got New York, New York. A lot of New York. Andreas, welcome from Greece. Thanks for being here. Toronto, awesome. Yeah, for those of you who might be in New York, it is pouring here. I'm in Brooklyn as well, and it is very, very rainy. Okay, Tel Aviv, welcome. All right, thank you all so much for introducing yourselves. As you continue to do that, I will introduce myself. My name is Lena. I lead community here at Linear, which means I do events and create resources, kind of like this onboarding call right now. And I am based in Brooklyn, as I mentioned, and I'm joined today by my colleague, Brian. Brian, do you want to say hi?
Hey everyone. Yeah, I'm Brian. I live in Washington State. I work on our CX team at Linear, so I'll be in the Q&A answering any questions that come up as Lena's talking. So if you have anything come up, please just throw it in there instead of in the chat so I can be sure to see it.
Yep. So as Brian mentioned, use the Q&A for any questions that you might have. He'll be answering those as they come in. We also sometimes will hold on to anything that might require an on-screen demo or a verbal explainer. So just know, put those in the Q&A. It helps us make sure every question gets answered. And then in the chat, feel free to continue introducing yourselves or hyping us up or hyping up our features, whatever. The chat is for good vibes. The Q&A is for the questions. Probably all good vibes. And then for those of you who are wondering, we will be recording the session today, so don't worry, you'll receive a recording of it shortly after we wrap today, and you'll be able to share that with your colleagues if they couldn't make it, and you'll also be able to use it to revisit the content we covered today. And I'll also share resources and links that are helpful in that same email after today's onboarding. Right. So now, during our session today, we are going to get a basic overview of Linear. So the assumption is that many of you might be new or you're trying to get a sense of like any features that maybe you don't know about or workflows that you haven't considered before. And so we're just going to cover core terminology as well as two of our primary workflows. So we'll cover project planning in Linear as well as how we manage unplanned work in Linear. And then I'll touch briefly on helpful tools like integrations and agents in Linear, and then we'll go back and answer everything else from the Q&A. Right. Now, this is, we only have maybe about 45 minutes to go over all of this. So just know there's a lot that Linear can do. I'm not going to show you absolutely everything, every single feature within Linear. There's a lot to be discovered. And so there might be some things that I just gesture to vaguely, or things that you're curious about that I'm not touching on in depth today. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Be sure to check out our resources or ask us about it in the Q&A if you want to learn more. Right. So Linear, if you are completely new to Linear, you're not familiar with it at all, see what I have. Linear is a project management platform. It's a place where you drive and track progress across teams. And it's specifically purpose-built for product teams. So if you are building software, if you're building hardware, whatever, Linear is built around and designed for the way that product teams work. And so you'll notice that there are some elements and features within it that are clearly defined by that specific use case, by the use cases of engineering, product, and design teams. But there are many ways that linear is very flexible and can adapt and be customized to meet your team's unique way of working. Something else to know about linear is that linear is quite fast. It's very intuitive, and you can take most actions with keyboard shortcuts or our command menu. So let's actually jump into the tool and I'll show you what I mean. So I mentioned linear is fast. We have tons of keyboard shortcuts. The most important one to know from the beginning is Command K. This is going to bring up your command menu where you can search for all kinds of actions to take. You can also look up our documentation, or you could even get help from our team and contact support. So that's Command K to bring up your command menu. Now, if you are a shortcuts enthusiast, which many of us are, we also have a shortcuts cheat sheet, which you can use to learn all of them all at once or look for shortcuts. You'll also notice in this menu that those shortcuts are listed next to certain actions. So shout out to all of you folks who are not touching the mouse, not even once in a day. All right, so let's go ahead and look into how linear works and how we actually use it. First, I'll talk about how we organize people in linear, and then I'll talk about how we organize information in linear. So first, in linear, at the topmost level, see, this is a little more legible. The topmost level, you have your workspace. So in this case, I have a fictional company called Rideshare, and this is the linear workspace that represents that company. Now, this is going to be a workspace for every single person with my same email domain. Everyone who works with me day to day, everyone who is going to have Rideshare as their company on LinkedIn. We might even have a couple contractors here and there in this workspace, but think about the workspace as a representation of your entire company. Then within that workspace, we're going to break it up into teams. Now, teams can mirror your org chart. You know, you might have a design team, you might have an engineering team, but teams can also reflect people who work together often and on similar surfaces. So you'll notice, for example, we have a driver app team. So this is kind of like the equivalent of a mobile app team. And then we could even have an Android team and an iOS team. Okay. This is a lot of teams, and we even have sub-teams listed here, which is way more than most of you will need at the start. My recommendation with teams is to create 1 or 2 just for the beginning, and then add more as you go along. But I don't think that you should have 64 teams on day 1. Keep it simple to start with. So that's teams. Teams funnel up into your workspace. And teams are made up of members. So members are our teammates, our colleagues, and you can add them as members who will have full access. So they'll be able to access any team across your company, any project. The only thing that they won't be able to do is to have administrative access or privileges. That is reserved for admins, of course. Then guests, on the other hand, are people who have limited access to teams. So a guest can be added to 1 or 2 specific teams, but they won't be able to join any team that they need or that they want to, as a member would do. So for example, I'm a member, or I'm an admin of this workspace, and I can view all of these teams. And that doesn't necessarily mean I'm a part of all of these teams, but I could theoretically jump in and look at that team and their work. Okay, guests are only going to have access on the individual team level. So let's go back into my slides and we can take a look at this structure again. For those of you who are switching or considering switching from Jira, you can also see some translations down here. So we have our members. Members make up a team, and then our teams make up our full workspace. Okay. So next, let's talk about how we organize information in linear. How are we actually doing work here with all of these people? So in this case, I'm going to start from the most basic level, which is an issue. And why don't I pull this slide up again? So issues are a discrete task They're going to be something that has a clear beginning and end state. You're going to know when you can check it off as done. And it's something that's probably going to take a matter of hours or days to complete. So I'll show you an issue now in Linear. I'm going to go into my team. I'm in the Rider app team. And within this team, I can see all of our projects, give you cycles, etc. But for now, I'm just going to look at all of the issues here. So here's one issue. And issues contain a lot of information. They have their title, they have description. You can see all of the history of the issue, and you can even comment on issues. So issues also contain, like institutional knowledge of some sort, these conversations and decisions made within them. They also have properties. So I mentioned that issues have a clear beginning and end state. So you'll notice this issue has what we call a workflow status. It's currently in review. Now, these statuses can be customized in your workspace as well as on your team level. So some teams might want to create a status of needs QA. Others, you can just leave it as is with the out-of-the-box settings. That's simplest for now, and then add as you go. Issues have priority settings, and issues also have one single assignee. This is the person who's responsible for completing it. There's a lot more in here, but I'm going to stop there just for now. Just know that issues are discrete tasks. They're pretty quick to complete. They have one person responsible for them, and they contain all kinds of helpful information. Now, issues collect up and they become projects. So a project is a collection of issues. Let's look at this project. In here, you'll notice it's our Android UI refresh project. And in here, we have all of the issues that are driving this project forward, that make up this project. Here's our project overview. And this contains all of the information that we need to know about the project. We know who the project lead is, who the members are. We know the project timeline. One thing to note is that projects can also belong to multiple teams. So if you're concerned about siloing or you want to increase visibility across teams within your organization, know that projects belong to multiple teams. So it's very easy to loop people in and maintain that transparency. Okay. Projects differ from issues in that projects are likely to take a little bit longer. They'll probably take a matter of weeks, maybe even months to complete, and they're a collection of those discrete issues. What's different from what's similar is that projects also have a clear beginning and end state. You're going to know when you have started it, so when you can move it from an idea to an in progress status, and you're also going to know when it's completed. So to give a real world example, a project might map onto a specific feature launch that you're working on. Projects could also be what's another good example? I think feature launch is the best example. Yeah. Because those will take a matter of weeks. They'll take some time. Multiple teams will have to collaborate on it, all of that. All right. So that's projects. Now, above issues and projects, there are two kind of organizing features that you can choose to use, or you can leave them alone. You don't have to use them if they don't make sense for your team. The first one is initiatives. An initiative is a collection of projects. So we'll look at this initiative here. And similarly, an initiative is going to be, we have information within this initiative, the details, description, we have someone who's leading the initiative, and you'll note an initiative is a collection of all of these projects. Unlike a project or an issue, initiatives may not have a clear end state. They're going to be company-wide goals where you may not exactly know when it's going to be done by or if it's all the way done. They're a bit more nebulous, but it's something that you're driving towards as an entire company. Now, initiatives are useful for informing project approval. So for example, if I know that we have, let's see, what initiatives do we have? So if I know that we have these current initiatives, I might prioritize projects that are driving these initiatives forward before I prioritize projects that aren't. So that can really help with project planning and intake. Initiatives are also really helpful for in I would say like morale. This sounds funny, but I think initiatives are really helpful for providing context to people's everyday work. So even if I'm working on a single issue within a single project within my team, I will know that it's part of a wider company-wide initiative. And so the work that I'm doing at whatever scale I happen to be doing it at is actually very important, is contributing to the company as a whole. So both initiatives can be very helpful on that more granular level. Initiatives are also helpful for leadership to review. So executives might be spending a bit more time in these initiatives views, looking in at project status, reading updates, more so than they'll probably be looking at individual issues or projects, right? Okay. So that's initiatives. Again, use them if they make sense for your team. You don't have to use them if they don't. The next organizing principle is a cycle. So a cycle actually organizes just issues, not projects, into time-boxed periods. So if you have worked in sprints, this is similar. And in this example, we have, looks like 2-week-long cycles. And within that cycle, we are going to track how many issues our team wants to and can complete. And what's helpful about cycles is that you can track your capacity over time. So in each cycle, how many issues do I tend to complete in that amount of time? And within the scope of our current cycle, where is my capacity? So how likely is it that I can actually complete the issues that I've scoped to this cycle? In this case, it looks like we're a little, just a tiny bit over capacity. So I might jump into this cycle and I might take a look at some of these issues and see, one, what are some things that need QA or that are in review that I can move forward or unblock? I might also look at some issues that are in progress, check in with whoever's responsible for them if they're quite late, and try and support moving those forward. And then for other issues, ooh, this is a long list. For other issues, I might roll things over into the next cycle if I know that they're going to be out of scope for our current cycle. Okay. So cycles are really helpful if your team works in sprints. They're helpful for analyzing your team's capacity over time and also capacity planning for the future. If you're just starting and you haven't used cycles before, you're not going to see this kind of percentage of capacity just yet. Linear is going to take, I think it's 3 cycles to start to calculate that automatically. So start now, you can start tracking it, and then in the future, we'll help organize. If you're curious, this cycle chart will tell you how you're tracking towards the end of the cycle. So ideally, our solid blue line, which is our issues completed, will hover around the dotted line or even surpass it. And that means that we'll be able to complete all of these cycles within the time of, or excuse me, all of these issues within the current cycle. Cycles, again, they're optional. They're enabled on the team level. So you'll find them in the team settings. And you can enable them in there. And you can also set specific settings like the length, if you want a cooldown period, etc. All right. Set cycles. If you're not sure if you want to start adopting cycles, one thing to think about is that they're very useful for management to capacity plan. They're also useful to maintain momentum over time. So you can kind of ensure that you're still completing the same amount of issues as you have in the past. So a bit of both. All right. So that's our core terminology. I'll bring this slide up again. We covered issues. Issues can be collected into cycles and are all going to be collected into projects, and then projects collect up into initiatives. We'll touch on these other 2 a little later, but for now, I'll just pause and see if there are any questions before I move on.
And
Okay.
could you just show the project documents and resources section? We had a question about like what project documentation is in Linear versus like a Figma mock that might be included separately.
Yeah, so projects are really wonderful because they are your source of truth. So if you're working across maybe Figma, Notion, Google Docs, that's totally fine. Linear is going to be the kind of one source of truth for where all of those things are. So you'll notice in here in my project, I have this resources section, and I can either create a document and maintain it within Linear. This is really helpful for things like meeting notes, stuff like that. You can also create document templates to speed up document creation, but I can also link to other things. So you'll notice I've linked to a Figma mockup, I've linked to a spreadsheet here. And so this is helpful, again, if you're using a mix of products or platforms, you can compile all of them into this project overview so that if I were to share this project overview as a link, someone could jump in and they would have everything they need right here. Below this kind of properties section, you'll also see we have our project overview. This is going to be more of like the project brief, PRD, or design doc. And this is going to give a one-pager understanding of what we're doing with this project and what we're going to complete with it. You'll see here, we can even embed Figma mocks. So as I mentioned, this is going to be the one source of truth for all of your teams. And I may not be a designer, but it'll be helpful for me to see these mocks without necessarily having to context switch and go into Figma. So we have this preview here, which gives me a reference, but I can still stay in Linear. So these kinds of things make it easier for teams across disciplines to collaborate. Okay. Diego asked, we work with planning increments. Oh, Brian, are you answering that one?
Yeah, I can answer that one.
Okay, cool. All right. So we've got our core vocabulary. Let's go ahead and start to apply these concepts to actual everyday work. So the first workflow I'm going to show you is project planning. And you all gave me kind of a leg up on this one because we're already in the project. But let's actually start from scratch. So let's say I'm on the Rider app team, and I've been noticing and we've been receiving feedback that our Android app is just really falling behind our iOS app. And that's not a great feeling. So I'm going to spin up a new project. Whoops. To just start ideating. I don't know if we're going to pursue this yet. I don't know what this project is going to require, but I just want to start planning it to collect ideas, collect feedback, and just start understanding and scoping what it would actually take. So let's call this Android UI refresh. And at this point, it's still an idea. I'll leave it as an idea. I'll add myself as the lead, and I'll give it a target date. Now, I'm just ideating right now, so a day doesn't really make much sense. I'm going to make this a little fuzzier, and let's say Q1 of 2026. Now, I recommend just, when you start, just these three things can be really helpful for anyone who is discovering this project, who wants to contribute to this project, because they'll know that we haven't implemented it yet. They'll know who to ask about it. And then we'll also know kind of when we intend to finish it, even though it's quite fuzzy right now, so that we don't have this kind of graveyard of unfinished projects in our backlog that have no clear responsible owner or anything like that. So just those three properties are useful to help. Then I might start writing my project description or project brief. Now, if your team has a standardized way of doing this, or you just want to make this process a bit faster, use a project template. So in this case, we've created a PRD template, and this will pull in a bunch of content for me. It will also pull in milestones for me, as well as pre-made issues. So project templates are more than just text. They are also actual like project attributes. So milestones down here are what break our project issues up into more manageable deadlines. Oftentimes, teams will use milestones to break feature launches up into launch phases. So you'll see we have our alpha, our beta, and our general launch. Then we also have 2 issues that are built into this template of design review and end scoping. So there might be issues that you need to complete with every project with your team. You can add those into a template. This is also really useful if you have projects that you do on kind of a more repetitive basis. For example, for something like a changelog, we do a changelog every week or so. We actually have a changelog project template, and we're able to pull in issues automatically because that's something that we know it happens every time. We do it pretty often. That template just speeds it up. All right, let's go ahead and create this project now. Great. So this looks familiar. Here's our project overview. And I might start to build out this PRD. I'm not going to make you watch me type too much, but I do want to show you a couple nice functions of this project overview document. The first is that as I'm planning, as I'm pulling in information and testing out our app to understand it, I can take notes in here and I could say, okay, one thing that I think we definitely need to change in the app is we need to implement our current brand. The other thing is that we need to enable more payment methods for, like, I don't know, Google Pay folks. We want those 2 things. So even as I'm just like thinking of ideas, capturing them in here, it's going to make it easier for me to actually implement this project once it's approved and we start building it. I'll show you how in a second. So let's say I'm done with this doc. I did a great job, very detailed. I can collaborate with others. So I could pull in Brian for feedback and he can chime in on this document. This to me is an underrated part of text, like commenting on text-based documents, is that you have this record of decisions made and why they were made within the comments of that document. So again, you're containing all of that within this project. You have a long-term record that anyone could kind of jump in and get filled in on just by sharing this link with them. Then Brian's like, cool, let's do it. We got to do it. So let's start implementing it. From there, I'll update the status. I'll move it to either planning or in progress, whatever makes sense. And I might start to update some of these other properties as well. So I could specify a clearer target date. I could loop in the teams who need to be looped in. If I'm using initiative, I can assign this project to a specific initiative. And I can even add specific members who are stakeholders and who will want to be updated regularly on this project. Okay. Then I can also convert some of these bullet points directly into issues. Another underrated feature, maybe it's perfectly rated, but this feature is awesome. One, because I now already have 2 issues created just because I was a very good and diligent note taker during my planning process. The other thing is that when I'm working on this, when I've handed off this project, right, I've started to loop in other teammates to work on it. Those teammates will be able to see this issue. They can see the issue details, but they can also see that issue within the wider context of my planning document. So they can understand, what does this granular issue have to do with everything else going on in the project? As we continue to build, as the project lead, I'll be prompted to write and share project updates. In your workspace settings, you can decide if you want to remind project leads to post these on a weekly basis, on I don't know, every Monday, for example. That's how we do it at Linear, and remind them to write these projects. So you'll notice in my inbox, I have a lot of updates that I haven't written. Oh, wait. I had some in here. Well, all right, forget it. They've been surpassed by other things. So let's look at a more complete version of a project where we have the full project brief. We have those requirements that have been turned into issues. We started designing it, and we've even embedded or linked to our designs. And we've posted our project updates. So project updates are visible within the project just like this. I can see all of the past updates up here in the Updates tab, but I can also share updates across the entire company. So for example, if I go into Pulse, I'll be able to see updates from across the organization. Alternatively, or additionally, I can also view project updates and send them to Slack. So if I have a mobile Slack channel and I have the Slack integration set up in Linear, I can set it up so that any update that's posted to a Rider app project will be sent to that Slack channel. So again, it's all about eliminating silos and ensuring transparency and visibility across your team as much as possible. One more thing I want to point out here is our customer requests. So customer requests within projects are a way to bring the voice of the customer directly into your project planning and implementation. So let's say, as I was researching this project, I wanted to understand what were the things that customers were hitting, what were their pain points. What's great is that our team has already been pulling in feature requests and feedback from our users. And these are all fictional. But here I could see, for example, okay, what kind of user is this? Enterprise? How large is their team? What's the revenue? We can do either ARR or MRR from in this column. And that can help me understand kind of the priority or type of feedback that I'm getting. Customer requests can be linked to the entire project, or you can assign them to specific issues if they apply to those. You can also pull in customer requests using our integrations like Intercom or Slack, and I'll show you that full workflow in a moment. And that allows you to view the source of the customer request from the customer request itself. So for example, if this was pulled in from Slack, I'd be able to go and view the actual intercom ticket and read it and get wider context that way. Or I could even write them and be like, hey, we built this. All right, so that's customer requests. Let me think, anything else for projects? Oh, the last thing I want to show you for projects is our overall project view. We get this question a lot. So in your left-hand sidebar, you'll see this project tab. You can view all projects at once, and you can even create kind of like a project roadmap by filtering those projects for only projects that are currently planned or started. And then you can set the display to a list or a timeline. And the timeline will show you the timeline on these active projects, when we're aiming to launch them, when we started them. It will also show us project dependencies. So we might see these marching ants, these kind of dotted lines connecting projects if you want a sense of dependencies as well. All right, pausing here. Any questions about project planning and implementation? Unfortunately, this sample project is not available anywhere, but I'm happy to send a kind of, I think we do have a template PRD that's shareable, and our product lead, non-you, he's also shared resources on this in the past. So I'm happy to follow up with that after today. All right. All right, Annalise, you got it. I'll include that in the follow-up email for you all, okay? Okay, now let's move along. We just talked a lot about project planning and what a privilege to be able to plan for things, but we know that's not always the case. So now let's talk about how we handle unplanned work in Linear. Your home base for managing unplanned work is going to be triage. Triage is enabled on the team level. So again, you'll go into your team settings and you'll enable triage from there. Triage functions like a shared inbox for any inbound issues that need more details or need someone else to review them before they actually are assigned to and enter your team's workflow. So this could be bug reports, feature requests, you name it, anything that doesn't have a clear project already. And in triage, let's say I'm the person responsible for triage right now. So there's always this responsible party. We can link this to a schedule. We have like PagerDuty, incident IO integrations that allow you to automatically sync your on-call rotation here. And then you can decide if you want that person to be assigned, notified, or nothing at all. So it looks like right now, Jack is currently on call. So if I'm Jack, I'm going to be keeping an eye on triage for any bug reports or feature requests that need review. So here I have one issue that's in triage. And the things that I'm going to look for at this point are that if this is a bug report, here we go. Here's a better example. If this is a bug report, I want to make sure that we have enough information to reproduce and actually remedy this bug. In this case, we don't have a lot. So what I might do is jump into a thread or jump into comments and mention the person who reported it and ask for some more details, like their device information, screenshots, etc. Now you'll notice this bug report was pulled in from Slack. So I could also jump into this Slack thread, or I could post directly in here, and that will automatically post to Slack and be updated with their responses. I'll show you that live in just a second, but just know it's there because it's very powerful. Okay. So I'm going to work on getting all of those details, reproduction steps, device information, screenshots, etc., so that I can then assign this to an engineer to work on and know that they have what they need to actually work on it and focus on it. If you are on our business or enterprise plans, we also have this handy thing called triage intelligence. And what this does is it will surface suggested assignees, it will suggest labels, suggest projects, etc., for this issue. And it will also surface related and potentially duplicate issues that we can link this issue to. So that's really useful because if we're having an incident, which would never happen, of course, if we're having an incident and we've gotten 10, 20 bug reports, we don't want all of those to be separate issues in Linear. We want all of those linked together so that it's not overwhelming for anyone on our team. So in this case, let's say this login bug, this is something that is impacting a few people and we already have someone working on it. I'm going to add these as related issues, and now I can see all of those issues within this one. That also means that if one is resolved, we'll get updated on every related issue as well. Okay. So that's the Slack intake process. When I'm done, I'll mark this as to do or done. I'll assign it and I'll accept it. You can also use these shortcuts up here to accept, mark as duplicate, or even snooze triage issues. Okay. So we've seen issues already existing in triage. Let's talk a little bit about how issues actually get into triage. At its core, a triage issue is just an issue, ta-da, with the triage status. So theoretically, I could go into my team's issues at any point. I could create a new issue and I could just give it the triage status. And that will now be dropped into this triage queue. That's one way. I can also create an issue directly from this triage view. And the other way is that I can use integrations. And this is where the magic really starts. So I'm going to show you this on Slack, but keep in mind that we also have integrations with things like Intercom, Front, other like support things so that you can import issues in directly from where support's already happening. So let's take a look at this on Slack. Let's do this. Great. So here's my Slack, and here's my triage. All right. let's say on Slack, one of my colleagues is reporting an issue. They're getting, okay, mobile app pop-up ad is blocking login screen. That it's very annoying. Okay, cool. So this comes in. We can go ahead and create a new issue from this Slack thread. I'll use a template that I've set up for a bug report. We've also specified in this Slack channel that we want any bug reports to be sent to the Rider app team automatically. Linear will generate a succinct description or title for the issue for you, and it'll also pull in the content of that bug report. From here, it's also going to give it the triage status and a couple of labels, but otherwise, I really don't know. Like, I don't know if this bug has already been reported. I don't know what kind of priority it should get or who it should be assigned to, but I know that the person who's on call and monitoring triage, they're going to know. So I'm going to send it to them and they're going to review it. Okay, fabulous. So now we see that pop up in triage and we've seen a new thread created as well. Now, I mentioned that if I'm an engineer and I need some more information on this, I can go into the issue in Linear. I can see that there's a linked Slack thread, and I can even contribute to this Slack thread and talk with the person who reported it without ever having to leave Linear. So we all want less context switching in life. Here's one way to get that. So now I might say, can you share a screenshot? Great. And now that's going to drop into Slack directly. And then I might share an image back to them. And now we have a full record of this entire conversation, all collected nicely and neatly within this one issue. So that once I'm ready to assign this to an engineer to resolve it, they'll be able to see all the information they need, or they could even go back and continue asking questions if more details are needed in the future. Okay. Now you'll also notice we got this little prompt. We have a new feature where you can also just ask Linear to create new issues for you using our Linear Slack agent. So if that was the case, let's say I could do this. And then Linear will create an issue for me. Great. I won't make you watch all of that, but again, know it exists. These are all pretty cool. And this is just Slack, but you should also know that we have integrations with numerous other platforms that you could use as well. Oh, the last thing I forgot to show you about this is that when this issue is resolved, we're going to have a nice experience of closing the loop. So let's go back into this original thread. I'll go ahead and mark this as done. Okay. And now the thread's been updated. We had a little check mark emoji. So we've closed the loop just like that. It's a warm and fuzzy feeling for all of us when a bug is resolved and we know it. Okay. Great. So that's how we manage unplanned work. Let me get back into my full screen. One thing to note about these is that if a specific customer has made the bug report or feature request, you can add that as a customer report or a customer request on the issue itself. I want to see if I have any examples of that in here. Don't think I do. But we saw in here these customer requests. So if CVS, for example, pings us on Slack and we create an issue from it, we'll be able to link that to their account, to their customer page on Linear. And from their customer page, we can also view every feature request and every bug that they've sent us. And we can kind of track how we're doing for that. So a use case for this customer page, for example, is that if I'm on the customer success team and I know that this customer is going to be renewing in a few months, I can actually go through their customer page and I could see, is there anything that we've recently resolved that they've requested? Is there anything that's in progress that we're working on that they've requested? And I can show them that and tell them, and they'll be able to know, like, okay, this team is doing a lot of work on our behalf. Maybe we should renew, or maybe these pain points that we reported before have been resolved. Let's renew. All right. That's really, really useful. Customer requests are also useful for product teams to do planning. So I could view all of our customers. I could see what specific customers are asking for and prioritize those specifically. I can also look through all of our issues and understand how many customer requests they've been given. So let's actually talk a bit more about views. Once I've accepted a bug report in triage and someone's working on it, I'm going to want to manage all of those bugs and make sure that they're being resolved in a timely fashion. So in views, I can create a list of projects or a list of issues, and then I can customize that list using filters and display settings. So in this case, I'm just going to say, I'm going to create an issue view, and it's going to be for bugs. In this workspace, all of our bugs are given a label bug. Great. So I'll filter by that, anything with that bug label. And then I'm also going to filter by status. So you'll notice we have a lot of filters that we can use: status, status type, so many filters. Just search for them if you're curious. And I'm going to look at only bugs that are unfinished or in the backlog. Okay, great. So now I can look and I can at a glance get a sense of any urgent bugs. So these are all way past their SLA. That's not great. And I might jump in and see how I can help and get this resolved. With this view, I can also see if you don't have SLAs set up, I could also sort them by due date or date created. So let's see. If the date created is within the past 3 months, I can kind of scope it by that. And then I could even change display settings to view it board style and to display properties, subgroups as I wish. So all of that is there. I'll save this for now as it is. Okay, nice. So that's my views. Views can help you to manage issues at scale. This is really helpful for managers, of course. If you're working individually and want to manage your issues, you do have your My Issues page where you can manage them, or you can create custom views as well. Now let's jump back into this view, and I'm going to use this as a segue into our last section where I'll talk a little bit about integrations. So we've seen the Slack integration in action. We also have a very popular GitHub integration. So on these issues, we can see our little PR icon. And so what's happened here is that we've linked a GitHub PR to the issue. And this allows us to sync that PR status to the issue itself and view it at a glance. And once we also have the option for once that PR is merged to automatically update the issue status to done. So those automations help us to ensure that all of our issues in Linear are kept up to date. It helps me to jump in. If I'm managing a lot of engineers, I can jump in and help and review code very, very quickly. And lastly, it helps agents. So if I assign this to an AI agent to complete, they can spin up a PR from the issue based on the context of that issue, and I can work with them in the issue from here. So it's really, really powerful. You'll see we have the GitHub Copilot agent here, but there are many other agents. So I'm going to show you, and we can peruse those together. In your workspace settings, you can find integrations. You can see which have been enabled. These are our most popular. So I've shown you GitHub and Slack, but I've also mentioned we have a number of support integrations. There's GitLab if you happen to use that. And then we also have these agents. So we saw it in the context of an issue, but by definition, an agent essentially is an AI teammate within your workspace, and you can delegate issues to these agents to complete for you. At every step of the way, you will have review privileges for what they're doing. They're not going to ship any code for you. You'll be able to approve their PR, review and approve their PR first. But these agents can be really powerful. So some popular ones are Cursor, GitHub Copilot. If you're a product person, we have a chat PRD agent, but definitely check these out. Okay. That is all I have for you. Brian, is there anything from the Q&A that we should touch on out loud or show on screen?
We had a few questions in the chat about how customer requests come in to Linear. Maybe you
Sure.
can handle that quickly.
Yeah, let me do this. Okay. Let me try to do a customer request this way. So login page glitching. So let's say we have a Slack community, or we have maybe managed Slack Connect channels with our customers, and they report a bug report or a feature request to us. I can create a new issue, and within this form, I can actually add that customer. So let's say it's Target who's reporting this bug. I'm going to submit that. And now let's look in triage and we'll see how that looks. So in this case, we have our triage issue, and you'll notice we now have that customer report linked to the issue. And this shows us verbatim what they said to us, where it came from, and also where we got it from. So if I wanted to ask more questions, learn more, or give them an update, I would know how to do that as well. Then from here, I can also view all of Target's requests and bug reports in one place from their customer page. Okay, so again, that's just Slack. Other integrations exist that have a similar capability. Did I miss anything there, Brian?
Yeah, I think like all of our sort of customer ticketing integrations like Slack, or sorry, Intercom, Zendesk, Front, create customers and do the same sort of thing. You can also create requests manually from like a customer's page if you're a CSM and you're working with a particular customer and they bring up something. But we're more to come. But we want wherever sort of you get your customer feedback for you to easily be able to bring those words into Linear so that people can see them when they're working on the issue or the project where someone had an opinion they wanted you to consider.
Yeah, so if I was a CSM or on sales, for example, I might input these manually. If we just had a conversation or a meeting, you could link to a source like Gong or something like that. And Linear is going to surface similar issues and projects for you so that you might be able to actually go straight ahead to linking it to an existing project or issue. And then you can add the request that way. Okay, great. Any last questions before we wrap? Okay. Ooh. Nice. All right, I see some more questions about GitHub. I will send you more resources. It's very, very powerful. There's a lot you can do. I didn't even touch on reviews where you can see every PR that you've been requested review on or that you have requested review on right from Linear. There's also ways to sync comments between PRs and Linear. So there's a lot you can do. Again, look out for those resources after this. Angelica wants to see more about reporting. Absolutely. I'll show you in our bugs view. So in here, we have this thing called Insights. You can access it by clicking on this little like bar graph icon. And this will show you how your team is tracking, how in this case, we're looking at how many issues we have across each priority. And ideally, the urgent issues are the least amount, and then lower priority issues we might have a few more of. But you can measure all kinds of things in here, slice it however you wish. So we could also use insights to understand things like resolution time, team, kind of like which teams are working on which things and what their kind of bug workload is. You can do a lot with these insights. And insights you can also collect into dashboards. So a dashboard is going to be a collection of insights all in one place. And this might be somewhere where managers, leadership, execs go to get a bird's eye view of how we're doing across the company. I should point out insights and dashboards are features that are on our upgraded plans. So you may not see these if you're just on our base plan just now. Okay. All right, I don't see any more questions. All right, well, thank you all so much for joining us today. Thank you, Brian, for answering questions and chiming in with your knowledge as well. Keep an eye out for our email with links to helpful resources and to the recording. And I hope that you continue to enjoy Linear. And if you don't, please reach out to us. Let us know. You know we have a good way of logging these things and resolving them now that you've seen our triage workflow. All right. Have a great day, everyone. Take care.